Welcome back to the Predictable Revenue Podcast. I'm your host, Colin Stewart. Today, I'm joined by Chris Brewer. He's the co-founder at OMG Commerce. And we are going to talk about the old school sales process, or basically the basics of sales that we all know we should be doing, but maybe we aren't doing anymore. And so this is going to be a great refresher. We're going to talk about, some of the pre-research stuff that Chris does. We're going to talk about your on-call tactics that were hard-earned. We're going to talk about what to do post-call. We're going to land the conversation by talking a little bit about the differences between the benefits and disadvantages of specialization versus full cycle sales reps. So if you're a sales leader, or if you're an individual account exec or closer, or somebody trying to get into a closer role, this is going to be a fantastic episode for you. Chris, I'm so excited to have you on the show. We're doing Fancy Shirt Friday. Thanks for joining us.
Awesome, Colin. Yeah, thanks so much. And hey, that's one of the benefits of being in the sales role is we can wear fancy shirts and we don't have to get permission or anything.
Totally. We can. If you ask anybody on my team, I don't. I am today because you raised the bar. I thought, I own a fancy shirt. I should do the same.
Yeah. And it's Flamingo Friday. Every Friday. I live in Florida. So, if you put all that together, you got Fancy Shirt Flamingo Friday, which say that 5 times fast, and it'll help you out on your sales calls. But Fridays are my day when I kind of hit the chill button. I try not to take meetings or too many meetings, and be able to just look back over the whole week, assess, be in a lot better mindset going into the weekend, so that I also can take my 28-year wife, still my girlfriend, out for dinner without the stress of the whole week pouring down on me. And actually today will be quite fun because I had 3 sales I closed today, which was awesome, and a great way to kick off this call, I guess.
That's a great way to not only kick off a podcast where we're talking about closing deals, but also a great way to kick off a long weekend.
Absolutely. We're heading into, depending on where you are, I think our Canadian friends have already celebrated their independence. Monday.
Canada Day. Everybody drinks a bottle of maple syrup. Yeah.
Yeah, and they're just now recovering from that. And now we head into the most redneck day of the year in America, where even if you're not a redneck, you become one. Because you can buy explosives that are just amazing. I've actually held a 4th of July at my house, which I call the Brewer Bash, for several years. I had to disappoint people because we moved from our house in Missouri to here, and we just didn't want to try and pull it off this year. We've got 26 acres and a huge valley, and I hire a professional who actually works on my team who's got his pyro license, and we do like a major show for our neighbors, no charge, and friends, and it was like this would have been like our 4th year. I have a band. It's epic. But all good things must come to an end, at least for 1 year.
At least for 1 year. I have some fond memories because my mom's American and my granddad lived just south of the border from us. And some of my fondest memories of the 4th were going down when I was a kid and going to the reserve and getting like the illegal firecrackers and fireworks and all that. And the whole family would pool together like a couple grand worth of cash, and you just go, and I'd get to barter and negotiate with the fireworks vendors. And as an 8-year-old, being able to like barter back and forth over hundreds of dollars of fireworks, it's so hard to barter with a cheeky 8-year-old. All my granddad would he's like, let him go. Let's do it.
Yeah. One more quick memory, it's related to sales. I used to own a direct mail publication, a coupon publication years ago. And I had this idea. I'm like, oh my gosh, because when you own your own business, do you get the pleasure of bartering? And back then I'd barter for restaurant trade and automotive trade. And I had a lot of barter out there. And so I thought one year, man, maybe I could barter with this big fireworks manufacturer that's in our town. And I did for 2 years in a row. I did $2,000 worth of consumer fireworks. And I remember one year I packed it into the back of my wife's Nissan Quest minivan. This thing was like, this should have had like DOT warning labels on the side. It was like jam-packed with all capes. And That's how I kind of got into doing fireworks and really loving it. But that's, again, one of the little benefits of sales is, and owning your own business, is there's always a chance to do some fun little barter.
I love that. I could only imagine how much fun that would have been. But we're not going to talk about fireworks today. We're going to talk about sales, sort of the other side of buying stuff. So I'd love to kick this off. We're going to kind of talk about your sales process, and we're going to break it down into the 3 steps, from like the pre-research call to the on-the-call stuff to the post-call stuff. So starting with, the pre-call process, what are some things that you're doing ahead of a call that helps set you up for to have a good call?
Yeah, and I want to make sure that I am personally going to take my experience on this, which is inbound. So the process for maybe outbound is going to be a little bit different. And I could argue that maybe it's not that different. So just apply it to your own situation. But in our case, we get a lot of inbound lead generation, and we have to vet out who we want to talk to, who we want to refer out. So this is going to go into the fact that we vetted them out and we're getting ready to have them on a call. So the research that I do on the front end, I just do a few quick, simple things that will save you a lot of pain and agony. The first is I just Google the brand name and I see what kind of branded results show up for them. And occasionally you'll find things like the FCC or the FTC has sent them letters, or like I've had those instances where I can tell this company's in major hot water. And so I'm likely going to hear that on the call. And if I don't, that's a major red flag. I've also found instances where you can see that their reviews are trash. Like they have a product or a service that consumers are just not good with. So those leave opportunities to find out on the call. And obviously we all know as professionals, we're not going to lead with that on the call. We're going to be very careful about how we present that information. But they could have sold the business, and a new guy or lady coming in could be there to have to handle that situation. The other thing I like to do is go to Glassdoor and see what their own team has to say about leadership. And that's become something we do quite regularly because, quite frankly, we had a client that I think we kept them for longer than any agency ever had kept them previously. But after we kind of had a flame out with them, very dysfunctional person, I looked at their Glassdoor and it was like 2 stars. And it was like, these are the worst people ever. And these are terrible. Like, do never work for this company. And it mirrored exactly what our situation was. I was on my 50th birthday party over in Ireland, and the client is calling me and text bombing me, and she knew I was out of the office. Just really crazy stuff. So anyway, those are just a few things. Just I always tell new representatives, like, you make Google your friend when it comes to research. Even if you don't have Sales Navigator or you don't have other data tools, there's a lot of places you can go to just get the early information and then read the reviews and be familiar with that. The other pre-call research process, our company probably like a lot, we get their initial information, maybe 5 or 8 questions that kind of categorizes them if they're an initial good fit or not based on budget, other factors. But then we send, it used to be, Colin, I'm not kidding you, it used to be over 70 questions, which was nuts. And we started getting a little pushback on that. It's actually down to 48 questions now, but the way we have it with the type form is every page has an image and every question can be skipped. So we don't force them to it. And the way we pitch this is, you're going to save yourself an hour by taking 15 minutes to give us this complete information. So, and if they don't fill that out, we'll push back on having the meeting. And again, everyone is different, what you're going to want to collect. For us as an agency, there's a lot we need to know about the e-commerce brands that we work with. So we don't have a driver personality on the call, an owner that we're sitting there asking return on ad spend questions and CPA questions and conversion rate questions and all of this kind of technical data that they could give to someone, have them fill that out. And that way our call is spent strategically and talking about their challenges and their pain and how we can resolve that.
Interesting. I mean, it's definitely something that's going to only play well on an inbound where somebody's already interested. If you're going outbound to somebody, there's like no momentum yet, it'd be very hard to be like, hey, now that
it would be impossible. But the bottom line on either for inbound or outbound is, I would hope most outbound are going after a Dream 50 or Dream 150 or having a very targeted, sales approach. And of course, with the platforms and Salesforce and HubSpot and everything else, Copper, you can do blanket campaigns, of course, but that's where all of that messaging is going to be thoroughly thought out, and you're not going to be looking at every client up front. But obviously, when you do get those hooks and you get people with interest, taking a few moments to not just go from one call to another, build yourself at least 15 minutes between your appointments. And in that 15 minutes, you can do a lot of research that makes that prospect think that you've spent quite a lot of time learning about them. And one of my big tips is always read the About Us on the client's website. The About Us, if they have it, in most cases they do, you will find out their story. Is this a family business? Have they sold it recently? What do they love? What are their charitable causes? What are the things that make them tick? Why are they doing this business? Why are they in this? So you'll find that in a lot of About Us. And so those are things you can come onto a call and say, wow, I noticed that on your About Us, you said you're really involved with the Humane Society. That's fantastic. I have a dog. Or again, you're finding those areas of common ground right from the very beginning on the call. And again, I can do everything I've already mentioned short of the typed form in 15 minutes.
Interesting. So Glassdoor, Google News, About Us, case studies. Where else are you looking? LinkedIn, I'm assuming, kind of profile them.
Oh, absolutely. I'm glad you brought that up, because one of the most powerful things that I've found is a tool called Crystal. And it's a extension that Crystal knows. Thank you. Yeah. Crystal knows. You can add that to your Chrome extension, and it's free. You'll get some use out of it for free, but for what they charge for it's like, if your company's not going to pay for it yourself, it's $100 for a year, I think. It's really, really a great tool. And so what you do when you bring up your prospect on the LinkedIn profile, if your extension is enabled, you'll see quick the disc profile that is predicted by the tool, so that you can find out the personality of the person you're going to talk to. And it's predicted based on how the LinkedIn. So most people have written their own LinkedIn profile, and it'll crawl their posts and other things. So it's able to tell. And what I've found is with a high degree of accuracy what kind of disc profile they have. And the Crystal knows if you have all of the tools with the paid application, they've got written templates for discovery call, for negotiation, for all kinds of sales activities that give you the kinds of questions and things to avoid when dealing with this personality type. I've also done an exercise, I haven't updated this in a couple of years, but where we took all of our deadbeat clients, those that were jerks or flamed out fast or didn't continue, and I went back and looked at all of their Crystal Nose profiles. I marked those down. And then I looked at the profiles of the clients that are still with us and ongoing, and we've had great relationships with. And I was able to find out the disc profiles that I want to stay away from. And for me, it was questioner, architect, things like that. Skeptic was one. And you can imagine
that's pretty obvious.
It's going to be kind of hard to do business with skeptic. Yeah. So,
Yeah.
uh,
I think I'm
but
a jerk.
it's been
So I just didn't.
so, yeah. But what we do on our like discovery questionnaire that I've got as my cheat sheet when I'm on a call is
Mhm.
my cohort in my department, she'll put up there Larry Smith or Colin Stewart, the jerk, and it'll have a little link to the questions that I can ask there.
Best title ever. Yeah.
As originated by Steve Martin.
I was Steve Martin all in my head for sure saying that. Awesome. And so you actually have you have somebody pull all this together for you. You got a cheat sheet. Does it go in Salesforce? Is it in just a doc?
Yeah, we use a spreadsheet that when the type form answers come in, we've got someone on our team that pulls that out of there and drops that into the spreadsheet for me in those areas where those questions are. And again, that allows me to, in that time right before the call, to look at those answers, and then I'll go in and I'll highlight other questions that I want to answer based on those responses, because our questionnaire probably has 85 questions on it, depending on YouTube or Amazon or Google or email. And I'm not, of course, not going to ask every brand all those questions, but probably half of those are already answered by what they put in the type form. So I'm able to highlight those cells on the spreadsheet, the things I want to go into. And it's done in a very conversational way that I'm able to take their answers, because what's crazy about prospects, even if they filled in that type form the morning before the call, they've already forgotten what they really wrote in there. And so when I can get on that call and go, I noticed that you were talking, I think it was, and I'm feigning that I'm trying to remember this, even though I'm looking at the screen. So it's just like, I'll see right there that they struggled last year with sales, and I'll say something like, I think you said in your notes, yeah, like, yeah, you struggled last year, right? And they're like, oh, yes, we struggled last year. So again, they gave me the information. I'm not being unethical. I'm trying to impart with my body language and the way that I communicate that I really understand and read through their answers. So I'm prepared. And then I can insert a follow-up question that, again, is on my list, but it sounds very natural. And so that's the way I'm able to build relationships very quickly on calls, just by using the information they've already given me, and then establishing that we can help them with their challenge.
So if I could use a sales tactic on you, is summarizing and confirm something I learned from, I can't believe I'm drawing a blank on his name right now, guy from Outreach. Anyway, summarize and confirm. What I heard you say was, you've got a piece of information about the prospect. You use that as a lead in. You say, I think I remember you saying this, right? And then you kind of leave a space for them to comment, and then you ask your follow-on question, right? And so you kind of tease out some information you already know, let them respond to it, and then you can ask a question to go a little bit deeper. Is that what I'm hearing?
Correct. Yeah. And then also, they've got to guess I've got some kind of resources in front of me on my screen. So in other cases, when we go deeper into details, I'll say something like, yeah, and on my notes here, you said your return on ad spend was, a 2x goal. Is that accurate? Again, summarize, then let them come at me. Oh yeah, that's accurate. Or they give me more detail. But that's how our typical pre-call and then getting onto the call kind of flows. And then I'm using some language techniques as well to gain trust and not build sales pressure. And Ari Galper, who had a course and may still have a course called Unlock the Game, he has a whole thing on not building sales pressure in the process and really being a trusted advocate to the client. And he does a lot of that. There's so much in his program, but a lot of it hinges on language and what he calls waltzing language early in the conversation. And those are statements like, because statements that build sales pressure are going to be things where you get into a rate discussion right away. Oh yeah, and for that, like, we can get you started for $5,000 a month on a 6-month contract, or $4,500 on a 12-month contract. That's going to build sales pressure right away because you're coming in with price and I don't know if I'm really ready. And so what is he doing here? But if I said something like, I think you mentioned earlier, you were questioning about like whether we were a fit or our rates. Like, would it be helpful to kind of understand where we are from a rate perspective? Yeah, that would be helpful. Okay, so just if we were to find we were a fit and if we were to work together, our rates are going to be in the $4,000 to $5,000 a month range, depending on term. But of course, like we're not even there yet. Like, let's go ahead and continue our conversation. So it's like dropping things, which gives them the information, but not in a way where they suspect I'm trying to close them or trying to lead them too quickly to a sale. At the end of a call, when you got to get next steps, hey, it might be helpful if we go ahead and schedule some time to go over the information that we didn't fully complete today. Would that be something that would work for you? Great. Okay, let's get our calendars out, what have you. So there's a whole lot there. But that's, again, how the more you can keep that sales pressure to a minimum, the closer you're going to get at a relationship level where they're going to feel like you truly have their best interest in mind, and also that you could be dying for this business, right? You could need this like I don't know, like next week's paycheck, you just need it that bad. Mm-hmm. But actually you're going to do yourself a lot better. Hey, whether you come on board or not, like, no worries. Like, let's just make sure this is going to work for both of us.
Mm-hmm. Like the desert needs the rain. That's what I was trying. I was looking for a lyric.
Thank you.
And
yes,
you.
Like,
yeah. I want to follow up on the call stuff because I love the comment on waltzing in. It's so easy as a salesperson to be, because we're trained on price. So it's kind of a negotiation and it's kind of this, it's kind of that. It's so easy for like price and value to get top of mind. I've recently been training a new account exec here at PR, James, who's doing a great job. And I've had to take time to reflect on my sales process so I can put down the structure I follow to a call. So I want to run an idea by you that I was kind of coaching James on and get your feedback, because it sounds like we're doing some similar things. And I think the conversation might add a little bit of clarity for anybody who's listening. I think if I lead off a conversation, because we're having similar conversations, you're in marketing, I'm in sales development, we're both in the business of helping companies find new customers. When somebody comes to me, especially from an inbound perspective, there's generally a gap that they're trying to fill. And if I go right and jump at, okay, so what's the gap? Like, what are the issues? What's the pain? They're typically a little bit hesitant because I haven't really built much of a relationship. They might know us, they might have, know the brand, they might have listened to the podcast. And that's certainly helpful. But if I jump right to like, okay, what's the pain? Then I've found people can be a bit gun shy. And so where I typically start the conversation is, how do they hear about us? That's a very easy question to answer. You're not guarded about any of that. It's like, oh, I read the book, I saw you, I found you on LinkedIn, et cetera, et cetera.
Right.
And then I go a direction where I'll a little bit more, something everybody's proud to talk about is their ugly baby or their product and the service and the company that they have. And so I'll get them to talk about the product, and that's a natural transition from there into, okay, so I see what kind of customers I see what your product does, who are the customers you serve. So it's a little bit more guarded, and they'll sometimes start talking about their best customers. And then I can kind of transition into, okay, so tell me about the number of customers you're trying to reach. And now I can get into the sales numbers. And if I go this approach, then it's like one step of like more personal information every time, right? If I were to start with like, tell me who your best customers are, it's a little bit jarring. But if I warm up and say, hey, so how'd you hear about us? Oh, cool. I'm Canadian, you're American. Oh, cool. That's interesting. Flamingos. Oh, neat. Then it kind of warms the conversation up. Do you follow a similar cadence, or it sounds like you almost maybe do the opposite? You jump right in.
It really depends. Again, like knowing that if you have a good idea of their profile, for instance, if I'm talking to a socializer or an influencer type, I know that they're going to likely be more relational and conversational Whereas if I've got a driver personality where a lot of business owners are going to fit that, and I find early on the call, they're like a type A driver, I am going to go straight into business because I just, it's kind of like one of the test things, and I've seen my business partner do this. My business partner likes to point out things in the background, which before you could blur your camera, those are, what's that fuzzy thing on the shelf back there? Oh, it's not a shelf actually. But anyway, but he'll say, wow, that's a cool phonograph. Like, what's up with that? And if you get a response that, they turn around and they go, oh, let me tell you, like, there's a great story behind that. And they start into that. It tells you a lot about the individual you're talking about. But if they go, oh, yeah, that's like my granddad. So anyway, the reason I reached out to you, so and where a mistake I see a lot of rookie salespeople make is that they're like, oh, well, that's cool. Like, where did your grandfather get that? They don't connect with what's happening there, and you can lose, and really what's happening in that mature business owner's mind typically is, geez, I got a total rookie here. That's what they're going to think about you. So I think it depends on the situation. I do the how did you hear about us, even if I know and it's clearly written down. I ask that because, again, that gives them a chance to tell us, and it reminds them also of how they were impressed maybe by a podcast that my business partner hosts, or a resource, or Ezra Firestone, who's one of our clients and friends for a long time, and a lot of people follow him in the space. So those can be times to even help them remember why they reached out in the first place, especially if a week or two has gone by since they actually reached out to you. And then I just really take the temperature of the call. You got to move in when it's time to get down to business. And if you detect body language or anything, then even if one of your team members on the call is still going into their story, you got to jump in, cut them off, and get right to work.
Got it. Okay, I hear you. And so we talked a little bit about some of that, like, on the call language. And you mentioned something about how you build relationships quickly on a call. I think it's such an important piece. I mean, it's kind of what I'm doing with trying to ease into it. What are the things that you're doing to build a relationship sort of on a Zoom call?
Yeah, I mean, we've touched on a number of things already, but I think making sure that you pronounce their name correctly, that you are upfront if you're not sure about how it's pronounced, so you don't murder it. Just be honest and transparent about that. And again, depending on the person and what you know about them, step into the things that are most important to them and allow them space to talk about that. Because the old Brian Tracy training back from Psychology of Selling, it is still so true today that the more that the prospect is talking about themselves, and the less you're talking, the closer you're going to be to a sale. The other quote in his training course is, selling is not telling, which is why, the more questions you can ask, the better to do it. So really, I think that's where I take a very consultative, low pressure, but if I sense a buying signal, I will immediately ratchet things up, but not in a way to close, because we have very few like one call closes in my industry, or what we do, because there's a plan. You got to look at things, you got to go into that. But I really think that's the majority of it is also mimicking. You can do mirroring on a call. Had one that we kind of made fun of the guy after, in a good hearted way, but we had this guy from Oregon on a call the other day. He was the slowest talker I've ever had on a call, like to the point where at one point I thought his screen was frozen, and I was about to say, oh, he's frozen, and then he kept talking. So, I mean, it was literally like, well, Chris, I think that our top business challenge, I mean, it was like combination of Eeyore and I don't know, but what I did, I'm a very fast talker and I can go boom, boom, boom. I slowed way down. I brought my language down. I came to where he was and talked to him, and that's a prospect that even today I could close him because I saw an email before I got on here. I'm not saying mirroring did all of that, but the more that you match body language, even on a Zoom call, you can match body language. If somebody's sitting back in their chair, you can sit back in their chair. If someone's like this, like they're kind of intently listening to you, there you go. You can do the same thing. And if they're nodding, you're nodding. So that's all stuff that if we're not one-to-one, we can still do a lot of that. And that's what we miss a lot of times, especially if you have a habit, and salespeople do this, of spending the first 3 minutes face-to-face, like I'm looking at you right now. And then after that, they're bringing up their notes. They're never looking at the screen. They're just on their notes. They're talking. And they're not seeing that the prospect is just had a big lunch and they need to do some kind of interrupt to jar them out of that. But that's how I do it. And then I think, again, just being respectful and courteous. And I think one of the big questions that I like to ask at the very beginning is, hey, I know you came here for X and Y reasons, but really ultimately, I want to make sure that we accomplish what you came here for today. This is not my agenda. This is your call. So tell me in the next 30 minutes or 60 minutes, whatever we have, if we were to end the call right at that 30-minute mark and you would be thrilled with what took place today, what do you ultimately want to come away from today's call with? And then they tell you exactly what you need to accomplish for the next 30 minutes. And that's why, too, never be afraid, no matter what your sales manager tells you. It's going to be a little controversial. No matter what your sales manager tells you, no matter what your manual book says, no matter if you believe that you need to really dig into something, if you need to listen further, if you need to set a second call, then do it. Because a lot of times, if you just try to follow your process without regard to where they would like to take the call, because you definitely need to stay in control. But many times, you stay in control of the process by following the prospect's lead in terms of their desires and wants for the interaction.
100%. Your sales manager is teaching you these set plays that set plays. This is how you do this. This is how you pass the ball, pass the puck, pass the whatever. This is the pattern that you're going to run. But if you ever played a team sport with somebody and all they ever do is run set plays, they're not reacting to what's actually happening. They're just kind of following patterns. And that would be so annoying if the person only ever ran a set play, as opposed to like, okay, well, my opponent's here, I'm going to run this way. Oh, the QB is going this way. All right, I'll go this direction instead, even though it's not exactly the set play that a set play that was called.
Yeah, good stuff.
And I love the kind of reacting, or not reacting, but I love, what do you want to come away with today's call on? It triggered, I've sat and wrote it down because I used to start almost every call with that. And I think I've gotten away from it recently. And I think it's always a really great reminder.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's a good one. The other good one, I think we talked about this earlier, was, in terms of, you can also use those kind of goal setting moments. Like, again, you've got to get enough connection and understanding before you get a client to reveal their goals to you. Because a lot of times too, it's sometimes hard for a business owner. They have a problem they want to solve, but all they can think about is, I got to solve this problem. It doesn't always connect with actually what they want to accomplish, like
Mhm.
4 or 6 months, or depending on your product. Your product could give them an amazing solution the day they start using it. All they have to do is sign up and they'll get an amazing result. For us, with CAD campaigns and things like that, their result may not come for 3 months or 6 months, depending on what they're doing. So that's where I like to ask people, hey, what does success look like for you? Let's just imagine for a moment. This is a great way to actually get. I've tested this a few times since we talked. It works. It works quite well. And if they're not really willing to go there, you can still get their goal and their answer by doing this. And this is how you get a testimonial video from a prospect before they're even a client. So how you do that is, once you've gotten them to a point where you kind of clearly establish their challenge or problem, what they're trying to accomplish. Hey, okay, so if we were to work together, whether it's us or it's any other agency that you would hire, let's say that you come on board and you like the team, you like everything that's there, you like the strategy that we put together for you. Can you just imagine for yourself as our client for just a minute, just kind of play with me here. Just put yourself as like you've been with us for 6 months. Think about all the challenges and problems that you want to solve, and then just share with me, just like what you would say if I got you on this video call and said, hey, I hired OMG Commerce and I'm so happy because I hired OMG Commerce and I've been able to achieve my goals over the last 6 months because these things happened. And I've had client prospects at that time say, oh, okay. Like you could see their creative mind get involved. Okay, I can do this. Well, I would, if I was your client, I would say that, hey, I've been working with OMG for 6 months and I'm really happy with the strategy that they built for me initially. I have a lot of confidence and faith in my team. They're responding to me within a 24-hour period, even sooner, sometimes within minutes. And my business has grown. My revenue's up 25% at a 3x return on ad spend, and we're growing, and I really couldn't be more happy. Well, what's cool about that is if you record your calls, 6 months from now, if you believe in your service, you believe in your team, you more than likely are going to accomplish those goals. You can feed that video right back to the client and say, hey, it's 6 months later. Looks like we're accomplishing this. Would this be okay to use this clip as a testimonial video? You don't even have to ask them to record one. And then there's even more fun with that, where you can actually tell people that this was actually recorded before this client even started working with us, and we actually achieved that goal. So whether you end up using it that way or you just use it as a technique to put them in the psychological space of where they want to be, everything they verbalize and how they would like their future to look like are those key objectives that if you nail those in the relationship, you're going to have a highly satisfied client.
Mm-hmm. That's super interesting. I love that you're getting because you're doing two things. You're one, earning yourself a case study, and you're two, getting very, very clear about their goals. If they say, hey, we need to book, 60 meetings a month, and you're like, and you want to do that with $1,000 in ads, you're like, well, this is a really great temperature check to make sure expectations are set effectively. And I think we're in a similar business where, I was coaching James on this the other day, that our job as a sales process is not just to help the customers buy and understand, everything that they're buying. Our goal for the deliveries is to serve our delivery team and help us set realistic expectations with the clients coming in. Because if we got an AE and they're saying, oh yeah, 20 meetings a month, no problem. And then they come in and they get 3, it's like, wow, that's a big difference. But if it's like, okay, so, if you do discovery, you're like, oh, this is like super high enterprise and you're very, very specific about, this and that. It's like, okay, it's probably going to be 3 or 4 meetings a month, as a baseline, because you're selling to engineers and CTOs that are really hard to reach. And then we actually deliver, 4 or 5. Then the client's super happy. But if we told them 20 and we deliver 5, then they're going to be very angry.
Right. No, good point.
I'm curious, where does expectation setting and management sit in your process?
It's huge. Like if you aren't getting those clear, mutually agreed upon expectations and putting those in writing, then at worst, you're going to miss the target and think you hit it. And just that misalignment that's going to happen where your inside reality at your company organization is, oh man, everything's good. Look at all this we're doing and look at these numbers and everything's great. And you get on the call and the client's like, guys, I got to tell you, I'm really looking at going in a different direction. And everyone's like, wow, what? And it's usually misalignment on expectations. I just had an instance with this today, and we had just signed up a new client, and let's just say that they weren't forthcoming with us completely. They were in a lot bigger financial situation, cash flow wise, than they indicated. Let's put it that way. And my spidey senses really didn't pick this up. The guy wanted to get way more efficient and needed to kind of reduce his ad spend, but that's not that uncommon in this environment right now, just to be more efficient and more profitable. I didn't realize, because after we brought this individual on board, the first call he had with our team was, I got to get to here by the end of the month. This is 2 weeks we had before the end of the month. I got to get here before the end of the month, or I'm not going to be able to continue with you guys next month because I'm not going to have enough cash flow to pay you. And that was a big shift. Now, a lot of agencies would have said, no, thank you. Good luck. Have fun with that. We decided just like, let's see what we can do. And as you might guess, this hasn't gone as smoothly as we did. And we're on target to actually hit his goal by mid-July to make it efficient and get him to this really nice, profitable place here in a couple more weeks, and no complaints there. But something that I had said on a sales call, expectation-wise, about just some setup stuff that needed to be done, it was causing them some stress. I'm like, hey, we could do that for you, no charge, even before you signed the agreement. That's all that this individual remembered, and he didn't remember all the stuff that happened after that, which was he wasn't getting back to us, and we did set up an early call to tackle this. And so then 3 weeks came by, and then he was firing his development team, and they only had 2 days to complete the work. So from his expectation, it was, you told me this would be done early. It's been 3 weeks and it's not done. Mm-hmm. And so it's one of those where I finally reached out and just said, hey, look, I'm going to apologize in advance because I did give you that expectation, but I can't argue with him at that point because if he's not going to be forthcoming. So what I needed to do there was, again, get that expectation in writing that we can do this before you sign, but it's contingent on you getting us all of this information, which obviously didn't happen till much later, and then it's still our fault. So those are just the ways that you are going to skirt around that. And I've kind of forgotten the end of it, original question, which is not uncommon for me. So hopefully I stayed on track there.
Yeah, 100%. We were talking about setting expectations, and I think we got there. The next piece I had on the on-call stuff was timing. I want to know, when and where do you use your question about timing? Because I always like to leave timing to the end. Timing is my soft close. But where do you use timing in the sales conversation?
I use timing pretty early, actually, in the conversation. Usually right after the waltzing questions and fun and where you're from and noticed you went to school at University of Florida. I did too, blah, blah, blah. How'd you hear about us? Oh, I heard about you here. Oh yeah, that was really great. And the way I do this is, hey, I know you're really coming on this call to find out if we're a fit for you, right? Like you're in exploratory mode. Yes, I am. And I'm just curious, like, are you only talking to us? Or you like, how many other folks are you talking to? Just so I know kind of what we're looking at here. Oh, well, no, you guys are the only one so far. I'm like, good. I got the first chance. I know I got to really get back quickly. I got to hop on this quickly. Well, actually, you're the third agency we're talking with. You're my third conversation. I know, again, right there, wow, I'm way behind the curve. Like he could have 2 great relationships already ahead of me. I'm going to really have to pull out all the stops here. So then then I'll say, okay, great, that's really helpful, fantastic. And just any criteria that you're using in assessing these, like what's your key criteria? What are you really looking for? So again, I want to dig into not just skip over. They're looking at other people. I want to know, what are you looking for? And let them tell me that. And if they've already talked to other people, sometimes I get nice intelligence there as well. Well, they'll say, well, I already talked to the folks over at XYZ, and one thing I really like that they do an XYZ blah blah blah. And I'm like, oh wow, that's fantastic. So do we, but we also. And so you can pivot on those things. And then finally, after all of that, I'm like, that's great, that's fantastic. And I'm just curious, and I'll set this up this way. And again, every organization is different. This is completely true for us. This is not like something I lie about just to get it. This is absolutely true. Mr. Prospect, we're a low number of client shop per individual that we work with. So we're high quality, low volume. And so I just want you to know up front that I don't always have availability. And especially this time of year, we get a lot of things. And I'll usually say this way.
That year? This time. Every year.
Yeah, this time of year. But and actually too, I will say that more when I know, like this time of year, like right now, I actually sent emails today to 3 folks that said, I have 6 people that want 2 spots. Let me know. And it was 100% true. Whether they believe me or not, it was 100% true. And I always tell prospects that, hey, if you don't believe me, it's okay. Just know that when you come back in 2 weeks ready to sign, and I say I don't have space, just let's remember this conversation we had today. And I'll say that with a smile, and they'll laugh. And in most cases, they'll say, oh, no, I believe you. I understand. So what I'll say is like, hey, so what I'm trying to determine here is like, tell me about your timing. Like, is this something, are you, this is red alert? Like, I've got major issues that I need handled and I need someone to dive in yesterday, and that's okay. Or I'm just kind of kicking tires. I'm not sure if I'm ready to buy, or is this like a next month or third quarter? Just tell me an idea of your timing. And so again, by doing that, if it's a red alert, again, I'm on red alert. Do I really want to get in bed with this person and be part of their nightmare? Or is this an easy solve and they've just been taken advantage of? And then if it's like we need to start next month and I know I have no spots, I am not going to waste their time. I'm just going to say, well, I need to let you know we are absolutely, it's June 30th. I know that you planned well on this and you were hoping to get right in, but we don't have any availability for July. Would that work for you? Would it August start? Because actually we like to do some strategic planning that could take us a week to 10 days. That could probably work out. Would that work for you? Oh, I think that we can make that work. So that's how I go through the timing. And there's more to that answer, obviously, but that's the way that I set it up typically.
Interesting. I love the, because I kind of do a similar thing. I do it near the end of the call after I've kind of gone through all this. I'll typically ask, like, because I'm always having a conversation about revenue, right? And so like, what's the priority level on this is a really great one. What do your numbers look like for the rest of what are the numbers for this quarter? What are the numbers for this month? How are you doing against those? Oh, okay. So there's a gap. Okay, great. What's the priority level on kind of solving this gap is sort of how I get that feel. And I do tend to have a very similar conversation. Mine, I tend to backload it because then it leads, I find it for myself, it leads, and this is it just for listeners. I'm not saying that Chris is wrong here. I love the way Chris does it. And it's like both two things are true, right? This could work for you. This could work for Chris.
Sure.
I'm giving my side so that the listeners have another way of another tool or another set of language or another couple of questions that they could ask. So there's no right or wrong way. And I don't disagree. I think I ask a lot of the same questions. I have a lot of the similar conversations. I like to leave mine at the end because I find it leads natural from like talking about timing, priorities. Cool. So like, all right, so I'm going to say to you something. People usually have questions. What does your calendar look like next week? And that's just, it's a great little easy transition to what I was also going to talk, what you brought up on in our pre-interview, which is my absolute favorite way to end a call. You book a call on a call. Tell me when and why you started doing this.
Well, actually, this is again one of those I've been in sales for a long time, but I think you brought this up earlier that sometimes some of your best tactics get put in the drawer and lost until you open it back up again and go, wow, I was doing that and that was working really well. So I think having those times where you reassess your whole process and what are we missing here? And a lot of times you can even start shooting arrows at operations, other management. They're giving your sales team pressure and you guys aren't following process and you're pushing back and, they're just not letting us close deals. Well, take a step back, think about it proactively. What could we be doing to move this process along faster? And one of those that I actually had to re-identify here recently is, a lot of times we would say, hey, you know what? Look, I'm not the ultimate decision maker. This is a great one too. It's true, but it's a great one for me. Mm-hmm. Hey, even though I'm the owner, I'm not the ultimate decision maker. They don't let me make that call. I actually have a strategic team, very educated people. We're going to take these answers back to them. I actually think you'd be a pretty good fit, but they've got to assess what answer you gave me and see, make sure there's viability here. This can happen in 1 to 2 days. But if you don't mind, we'll be getting back to you, and then we could talk about whether we do a free strategic review or blah, blah, blah. And then I just leave it. Okay, great. That sounds great. We'll get back to you. Click. And then we go and we put the thing in Slack and we do some answers. And then guess what happens? Caitlin, who runs the whole back end for our company, I've emailed this guy 3 times. Or they're not responding. What do you want me to do? And the way that, again, we change that really quickly is, hey, this takes a day. We think we can get back to you tomorrow. Would you have 15 minutes? It's a very small ask. Would you have 15 minutes tomorrow, 4 o'clock? No, I don't work Fridays. Okay, how about Monday? So again, you do the whole thing that cold callers do. What about next week? What about this week? But now you've got a warm lead, and you're going to say, because if they're not willing to commit to a follow-up on whether you want to move forward, they're just hunting for information.
Yeah.
And so actually I actually just closed today one of those first ones that I'd used that technique on, where we kept the process moving. We did this call last Friday. We moved him to Monday to make sure everything was good. And he was on a call tell me where I send you guys the check. I'm well, hold on. We still have to get you a contract. He was ready. But that's, again, it also allows you to stay out of the email and get FaceTime and get another one of those face-to-face interactions, touch points that's going to lead you closer to the close. And I know many of you are out there, I do that every time. Good for you. Good for you. You should every single time book your next call for the end. But for those of you that have tucked it away in the drawer or just too lazy to do it, pull that back out and you're going to close more deals.
Even if you close exactly the same amount of deals from it, it'll save you hours of prospecting and email back and forth and this and that. It makes everybody's job easier. And the best thing is, I got a call. I booked a call on a call for Tuesday, and it was originally for this Tuesday. And then they emailed me an hour before, and they're like, "Hey, we can't make it." I was like, "Great." I emailed them back. I was like, "Hey, how about we book for next Tuesday?" They've ghosted me. I know I'm not going forward with this deal. I know that the timing isn't good, or we were too much, or whatever it is. It's information, right? Whether they green up or not. And even if somebody's like, hey, this is it's not a great fit right now. I'm like, okay, well, I always have the what needs to change between now and then conversation. And they're like, okay, so we got to do this, this, and this. I will book a call 3 months out. And I just put a hold or call it a placeholder. I'll say, this is just to remind us of this conversation. And if it's relevant, great. I'll email you a week ahead of time and see if it makes sense to have this conversation. And if not, we'll push it out. And I probably have 5 of those calendar invites pushing forward in my inbox right now. And I just keep pushing them out because it's a meeting invite is a real chunk of time that you've committed, whether or not you remember the context. And so you're more likely to get a response on, hey, we've got this time than, hey, is this relevant right now? And there's no meeting on the books.
Right. Right. No, and I think a good thing to point out here too, kind of from what we were talking at the very beginning, is this is where automation can be your enemy and not your friend. And that's where if you just rely on, okay, at this point in the process, I'm not sure if we're ready to move forward, not sure if they're ready to move forward. I'm going to go into HubSpot and I'm going to click them into our follow-up sequence. And I'm going to let the follow-up sequence do the work. And that's where, again, if you're relying on those kinds of things, it's lazy sales. And that's where the combination of a smart individual like you that are listening to this podcast, because if you've made it this far into the podcast and this recording, you're really smart because you're really wanting to pick up all of these nuggets. And that way, of course, and the fancy shirts is a bonus if you're watching this. So, and if just imagine if you don't, very fluorescent flamingo shirt, just imagine that. And so that's where the combination of smart people and great tools can lead to exceptional results. A reliance on smart tools, for the most part, will usually lead to mediocre or disappointing results, I've found.
100% agree. My mentor in the early days would chastise me a little bit because I would always go tech first. And his process was people, process, technology. Get the right people there, make sure they have the right process, then find technology to enable that process. And I think there's been too many sales tool first sales teams out there that are just doing things because they can with the tool. I do want to ask you about this meeting that I've got coming up on Tuesday. Now, I've had one call with them. We had another call booked for the Tuesday that just passed, and they didn't ghost, but they said, hey, we can't make it, don't call us, we'll call you kind of thing. And I said, okay, how about next Tuesday? So I think they're going to ghost me again because they haven't accepted the invite. What would you do what should I do if they don't show up on Tuesday?
And this would be the second time they haven't shown up?
Well, the first one they rescheduled. And so this one they just haven't accepted, haven't replied back to me. I'm assuming they're going to go dark. I'm 95% confident they're going to go dark.
Yeah. Oh, I think there's a number of ideas I could give you here. One would be give them permission to tell you no. Because if those that kind of kick the can, ghost you here, give you a hopeful email here, sometimes they just don't want to. They like Colin. Colin's a good-looking guy. They were impressed with what he had. They don't want to disappoint you and crush your hopes and dreams. So they don't want to say, Colin, look, this isn't a fit. Like, we don't have the money. Like, we're not actually a good prospect. So that's one technique, is to just send them an email. Or I really love it if you don't do this on a first email because it'll likely go to spam. But if you've exchanged a couple of emails, record a Loom or a Vidyard and put your face on it and smile and just say, hey, Colin, we got this meeting coming up Tuesday. I sense maybe there's a little resistance to move forward. And hey, I just want to let you know, if for any reason you've got hesitancy or this just isn't a good fit for whatever reason, like, I just want to give you permission. You can say, hey, it's not a fit, no worries. And let me know, maybe I've got a referral resource that is at a budget amount that could be a good fit for you. Or maybe there's some other resources I could point you in the right direction. So be sure to let me know via email in response to this. Otherwise, I'll see you Tuesday. So that's a great little technique there. The other one is if you're into that follow-up loop and you're like, this is crickets. Man, they were so ready. Like, that's a part for me that drives me crazy. Just the fact that people tell you things, get so excited, and then just ghost you. Like, that's the most bizarre thing. But the thing I've had to remember is that, one, keep in mind, the reason people don't respond most of the time is they have communication loops on their end that aren't closed. They're having to get approval from other people. They haven't forgotten about you. They just don't want to respond because they don't have any information. Now, we both know it'd be nice if they emailed and said, hey, Colin, still trying to get things back from my supervisor. No worries, we're still in. Great, awesome, super. But most people don't do that. They snooze the message for 3 days. And meanwhile, we're going, what happened to them? But they're still on the hook. We just don't know. So that's where you have to be creative in how we're communicating to those folks. So I did this again today and closed a sale today using this technique. I had a prospect that's told us 3 times they want a contract and they want to sign a contract. We have sent them twice the information they need to give us to send them said contract. It still hasn't happened. And this is somebody who ghosted us twice on meetings previously. So we got all kinds of red flags going on. And finally today, I just sent an email that basically said, that's another way to do it, is give a hard deadline. I basically said, you've mentioned twice that you want to move forward. If we don't hear from you by July 6th, it's okay, but we will be moving forward with other brands that are allocated for this spot. And within 30 minutes, the person emailed back with all the information and was ready and said, we're ready to move forward. In other instances, you may want to get playful. Again, depending on the personality of the prospect, but I've sent cricket gifts. Literally, I've sent the subject line that is, and sometimes I'll put crickets in the subject line, like thinking about crickets, ? And then the email says, forgive me for this. Hopefully you'll take it as it's intended, but it's been pretty quiet. Like, give me an idea. And so you can use, like, I use Mixmax as a tool that integrates with Gmail. Mixmax has some ways it integrates with Tenor and some other GIF places that you can get things that you can insert into email. It's just like you could be playful and professional at the same time. And also then just get right to the point in the email. Joe, haven't heard from you. I know I've learned over my career that when I don't hear back from prospects, it's due to one of these 3 scenarios. 1, you have hired someone else and you don't want to disappoint us. It's okay, Joe, we can take it. Number 2, prospects are on vacation and they forgot to put their vacation responder in the email. Joe, if you're on vacation, enjoy yourself. Hope to hear back from you soon or let me know. 3, prospects don't have all the information they need in order to move forward with our company. Joe, how can I help you gather that information or inform other decision makers? Please let me know. Sincerely, Chris. Now, again, you now gave them permission. It's very uncomfortable for most people to ignore that message. Holy cow, I'm not on vacation. Holy cow, I forgot. Oh my gosh, like, let me get back on this. So almost always when I go direct like that, I get an answer of some type that I can work with.
I love that. If anybody's listening and you're new to sales, like, rewind or go grab the transcript from YouTube and like copy and paste all these email templates. If I had this episode specifically and all the little bits you just shared 20 years ago when I started, I would have saved so much time and I would have earned so much more commission. Just simple little things like this that you don't have to reinvent the wheel. These are all emails that we've sent that get great responses. So go copy and paste. There's no shame in it. Thank you for sharing, Chris. That's amazing.
Sure, Colin.
I love, I want to maybe talk about, we talked about kind of following up when people ghost. What about so say these people show up, back to the 2 founders I'm going to talk to on, might talk to on Tuesday. Say they show up to the call and they're like, hey, you know what, Colin, like, we appreciate everything. The timing doesn't work on our side. We got to hit another raise. We need to get a couple more milestones. We got to get XYZ in place before then. What's your process for kind of nurturing these accounts that they're the right fit? They love Chris. They love the flamingos. They're just not, their business is not ready right now. How do you handle that conversation? Because they'll be a customer in 6 months or 3 months, but these are really hard ops to stay on top.
the first thing is I get permission when to follow up with them. So one is of like, oh, completely understand. And like one of the things that I've always tried in this role is to not be the annoying person that keeps following up every 2 weeks an email. You know, those kind of people. Oh yeah, Chris, those are annoying. Like, yeah. So like, tell me, like, these are all really practical business decisions that you're making. When is a reasonable time? Remember the word reasonable. When is a reasonable time that we should reach back out to see how you're progressing on these initiatives? And they will say, well, let's see, today is almost July. I think early September be good. Early September. Now, what are you going to do right then if you listen to this entire podcast? You are going to say, okay, what if we went ahead and scheduled a call? We got Labor Day, early September. What is your calendar like? Now, you're going to find out how serious they are at that point. If they go ahead and say, oh, absolutely, let's get September 5th on, you know, they're serious. If they thought about that too quickly, and actually they're going to probably move faster, they may go, well, actually, come to think of it, let's do early August. That's going to tell you a lot too. They're still on the hook and they're giving you better timing. Now, if they say September and you book a call on the 5th at 9 a.m., please reach out on August 1st. Always follow up by email if you've already got a meeting. At least, it depends. If it's a year away, you're going to follow up 3 months in advance. If it's 6 months away, you're going to follow up 2 months in advance. You get what I'm saying? If it's a month away, because I can't count, again, when I was younger, I don't make this mistake anymore. But when I was younger, it would kill me because someone would say, hey, we're going to tackle that Q1. So contact us in early December. And I put that in my ACT, remember ACT back in the day, the old ACT customer contact.
I used
ACT.
Yeah.
Maximize.
So Maximize was a Vancouver company.
Yeah. Sharkware, I think, was another one back then. So I put that in my ACT, and December 1, hey, prospect, I'm calling. You said December 1. Oh, yeah, well, we've already made our selection for an agency for next year, and all that budget's been allocated. Wow, really? So prospects are not lying to you. It's just things happen and change in business. So if you're not saying such, so that's one method there. The other thing in terms of nurturing opportunities, again, before you get off that call, hey, Sarah, I understand, like you're not ready. Aside from everything else that we're talking about, what else are you looking for in your business right now? What other solutions, problems, challenges? You know, I've been doing this 25 years. I know a lot of people. And if I can be a resource to you to connect you with somebody to handle some of these challenges, could I do that? Oh, well, actually, do you know any NetSuite providers? Oh, yeah, I've got one of those. And actually, I also know I'm going to make 20% on that NetSuite sale, which is pretty sweet. No pun intended. So anyway, you never know those things so now I've got a way to follow up and say, how did that referral to the Facebook agency go? Oh, we're working with them. It's great. And oh, by the way, we'd love to talk to you about Google again. So you find ways to follow up before they're ready because you're just checking on something that they gave you, a resource that they gave you. The other way to nurture opportunities that aren't ready is you can go to new, you can put in a Google alert. I think Google Alerts is still a thing. They may have shut Google Alerts down, but there's other ways to do this. But you just put in or you can hire a freelancer to do this. Just every so often you do a Google search, you do a news related search, you do a PR release related search, you follow their LinkedIn. You just have those things kind of pinging into your HubSpot or wherever they're going to be. And when you see something interesting or that relates, send the news article out. Hey, I saw this. That was cool. Stay in touch without doing anything about sales. So send them a resource, no sales language. Send them an article, no sales language. I thought of you when you did this. And And that's where one of my other suggestions that we're going to talk about in terms of keeping in touch, and this is way old school. This is like early 1990s old school, I think. There's a guy named Harvey McKay. Yeah. There's a guy named Harvey McKay, wrote a book. One of his books is Dig Your Well Before You're Thirsty. And he has this thing, and we can put this in the show notes if you want. I'll link out to it, called the McKay 66. It's a customer profile, and it's all kinds of questions that you can ask and learn about your potential prospect. And these are all things that can help deal flow keep moving forward. And just to kind of give you a flavor of this, it's all your typical customer information, but then you're going to find out through the relationship: high school, college honors, fraternity, sorority, sports, military service, spouse, children, children's education, previous employment, previous positions, nature of that relationship, what's their immediate business objective, are they politically active, religion, community, medical history. I mean, like, it's all there. And this is just found out because the longer you're with a client, you're going to have opportunities, dinners, follow-up calls, things they say. Yeah, I've had some health issues. Oh yeah, I have too. Like, what's going on, if you don't mind me? Well, I've got this and that and that. So then now I've got information. Well, I'm struggling with this whole thing. Well, I actually know a lot of supplement companies. I could send them, hey, I got this coupon code on this supplement. You might try this out. It's really helped me. Again, now you're into relationship and you're into things that are going to help them out. So having a little profile like that, that's kind of your cheat sheet that's in your customer record, that allows you to pull those things out and do gifting and things like that that relate directly to their interests. That's not just some logoed stuff that your company's going to send them. And actually, quick funny story, if I can tell it, while I also get me a quick sort of water over here, is we had this client and we sent them a mug that had our logo on it. We usually send this after like 3 months, and it's a nice mug, you know. And I'm not big on sending logo merchandise. I'm not, but it's what we do. Not going to fight it. So, you know, but we sent this mug, and the client, who is thrilled with us, by the way, takes a picture of the mug with his warehouse, his massive warehouse in the background. And he said, I signed up with a new agency and all I got was this cheap coffee mug. But I also got incredible results, an outstanding team, a lower ROAS, and blah, blah, blah. Like, he raved about us. But he was having a little bit of fun with our gift, and that's completely okay. And so what I did is I'm like, okay, this guy's got a sense of humor. He's playful. So this guy's in computers. I'll give him a little plug. This guy's owns a company called PC Liquidations. It's a great source for like used computers and scratch and dent, and you can save a bunch of money on really good refurb computers. And I worked for a little volunteer organization here. They needed a new laptop. I knew where to go. I bought it for the organization. They got it. It had scratches on it, but it was a really nice Dell, super fast, and they were thrilled with it. So actually today, I just shipped this off to him. I sent him a t-shirt that said, I bought a laptop from PC Liquidations, and all I got was this t-shirt and outstanding performance, a fast chip. I put all of the things. So I mirrored what he sent us and sent him this t-shirt. Like, he's gonna love that. And so
yeah,
those are ways that you grow in relationship with someone, and you make it harder for them to drop you the next time you make a mistake, because you will make a mistake. So make it hard for clients to fire you.
Love that
Relationship.
Gonna have to pull myself off his site. I immediately went and I was like, oh, big monitors. What do we have?
Yeah.
I'll throw a link to all those things in the show notes. And I even found the McKay 66 questions. I'll link to a PDF there. PDF warning, it does link directly to a PDF. I found the book. I also found that it's on Amazon as the book, but if you got $166 burning a hole in your pocket, you could get the cassette edition.
Oh, absolutely. You just gotta go find a player.
Exactly. Maybe an old truck or something kicking around. Chris, I really appreciate having you on the show and you sharing everything. I'd love just help me understand the impact. I mean, so many of these lessons that you shared today, the scripts, I could tell you've shared them with prospects hundreds of times, maybe thousands of times, especially some of these follow-up emails. What's the impact that doing these things has had on you personally?
Wow. Great question. Well, one, I love sales. And if you don't, you're going to hate sales if you don't allow your personality and what you've learned to come through in your daily efforts. So I think that for me, like I enjoy one podcast like this where I can share my 30 plus years of sales experience with people and help give them new ideas that's going to, recharge their batteries, because like sales is hard. And even though I own a company, very successful with, I think I'm proud of the fact that my talents and skills have contributed at least to feeding 65 families, including 13 families in the Philippines, every week with a paycheck. That's something I'm really proud of. And if you're not an owner of a company and you're a sales representative, then you should be very proud of the fact that you can use these techniques to feed your family and have the lifestyle that you want to have. And then finally, I can sleep at night. I can sleep at night because I know I'm doing sales ethically. I know I'm selling something that has value, that can change people's lives, that can help them exit companies for millions of dollars. And that's something that has kept me rolling for 14 years doing the same thing, the same place.
Love that. And just as we wrap, we've kind of talked about how we do similar things, and I've kind of maybe led a little bit more into what I do. Tell everybody about OMG Commerce and what's the best way for them to reach you if they're in need of growing their companies.
So OMG Commerce is a performance marketing e-commerce agency where we focus primarily on strategy for D2C and CPG brands, direct consumer and consumer packaged goods. We do a little bit of B2B, and we do that with ways that we accelerate growth for brands that are already growing, or a brand that might be strong on Shopify, but they haven't launched on Amazon, for instance, so we can help them get started on Amazon. So we have a team that is world-class with Google and YouTube and Microsoft ads, as well as a world-class Amazon team and Meta ads and Klaviyo for email marketing. So we typically deal with, we have a handful of 7-figure brands, but we kind of stay in the 8 to 10-figure plus space. So, but we tell people, hey, don't hesitate to reach out, because like I said, I've been doing this a long time. I know a lot of people. I can introduce you to folks that can help you wherever you are in your journey. And the best place to reach us is at omgcommerce.com. And if you click the Let's Talk link, you will come directly to yours truly. And Caitlin too. She'll make sure if I miss it, I see it. So there you go.
You might have to fill in 66 questions ahead of time, so be prepared.
Not for anybody that mentioned Colin's podcast.
Oh, there you go. I'm saving you time now. Just put, I know Colin, and you get to skip it. Chris, thank you so much for coming on the show. It's always fun kind of rehashing and going to make sure, as a health check for myself, what am I missing? What am I forgetting? And I picked up a couple of things that I was taking notes on today, so I really appreciate that. I'm definitely going to steal a couple of your email templates. So thank you.